Okay, hey guys, this is Christina Previtt, the CEO and co-owner of New Jersey Divorce Solutions, a law firm located in Edison, New Jersey, practicing exclusively divorce and family law. And joining me today is Karina Lucid, a bankruptcy attorney also in New Jersey. Thank you for joining me today, Karina.
Hi, Christina. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I feel like it's such an important time to get information out to people about how to manage their finances because everybody's just, terrified and confused. So I really appreciate this opportunity to be able to get out there and speak to people.
Well, thank you for coming on and being generous with your time. And so I just want to say, I'm trying really hard not to be all doom and gloom on our Facebook page and on our social media pages because, who wants to hear about coronavirus every single minute of every day? But that said, I can't ignore that there are people that are in a bad spot right now. There are people that are very worried and nervous about their financial situation. So for the people that think that potentially there's a bankruptcy on the horizon for them, or if this is something they're considering, I wanted to talk to you because maybe bankruptcy is the right decision, but maybe it's not. So I wanted to go over with you generally the status of things right now with bankruptcy and try to help people have a little more information about it. So what is happening right now in bankruptcy court? Because I know a lot of the courts are sort of working on a limited basis, but what is happening in bankruptcy court right now?
So I have to tell you, I am super proud and happy to be a member of the bankruptcy bar right now because our judges and our trustees have really moved mountains to make everything as streamlined as possible for people. They and their staffs have been literally more helpful than ever, and they have always been, a very, very helpful team to work with. And now they've just so much gone above and beyond. And they're even having sort of brown bag workshops via webinar for us practitioners every other week to keep us updated and in the loop on what they're doing, the changes they're making, how they're handling cases, what trends they're seeing, all that stuff. It's just such a great thing to be a part of. And they're doing.
I'm sure the clients don't want to be part of it. But for the people that do have something pending, or for the people that are thinking, oh my God, I think I need to file bankruptcy like right now, can they? Is the court functioning as usual?
Our court is functioning not as usual, but at 100% capacity. I mean, they are doing everything you would never know from case management perspective that things are being done so differently. And even when we talk to the judges, they are amazed. They, telling us, when they go on to their calendars each day and it comes time for those matters that have to be decided by the judge, usually they have like 300 to 400 things on their calendar every day. And we're in court all morning long, working stuff out, making deals, getting adjournments. And there's a certain number that's left for the judge, right? Yeah. And they're consistently telling us, you guys, the trustees and the practitioners, the bankruptcy attorneys are doing such a great job at getting things resolved remotely and ahead of time that they're not hearing any more than the normal number of cases that they would hear. And so, it's very streamlined. And between the virtual meetings for the hearings that we have to have, or the telephonic meetings, they're keeping everything just running like a great machinery. The other thing is, not only can you still file and it really feels like it's in the ordinary course. The differences are like, I can't have an in-person meeting, obviously, with my client to review their documents, but we have video chats, I do have some clients who have a lot of trouble with the computers, but there's always a family member that can help, so we get it done. And, even getting the documents signed and returned back. What's actually the most impressive part to me? Emergent filings are still happening because the court is allowing us to visually witness the client signing the documents by a video conference. and they're giving us permission to receive the physical documents after we file, which ordinarily would not be allowed, right?
Yeah.
So if you have an emergency, I can still get it done because the court has made that sort of bridge rule for us.
So what is an example of an emergency in bankruptcy law?
Well, so a lot of emergencies right now are sort of on hold, which is great. Emergencies in our world, the number one emergency normally is a sheriff's sale. Okay. You know, if you're at the door of your sheriff's sale and you run in because you're just like, I just need more time. I just got a job and I need to be able to apply for a loan modification. And this happens all the time. That's obviously not happening right now because the federal government and the state have put moratoriums on sheriff sales. So the sheriff's dockets are completely closed down for now. But there are other emergencies, like there are collections actions are still ongoing. And a wage garnishment order could be executed upon. And then somebody's all of a sudden like, you know, I already got a reduction in my pay because I have less hours due to COVID, and now I have this wage garnishment order. And that can create an emergency. Another thing is evictions, but evictions right now are also stayed. But it's anything like that, you know, is like.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So I really just want to reassure people that if you have made a decision that you want to move forward with a bankruptcy, you don't have to just kind of sit on your hands right now and wait for this to be over. You can still move forward with it. But I want to talk about for the people out there that aren't involved yet, and they're trying to make a decision about whether this is realistic for them. Can you just describe generally what is the difference between someone who's a good candidate for a bankruptcy and somebody who might be a better candidate for a debt consolidation, or if there's some other alternative too that I haven't even mentioned?
Yeah. So it's really hard to answer that because they're always case by case. And I am very biased. I won't deny it. I absolutely hate it when people tell me that they're going for a debt consolidation under any circumstances, because to me, a debt consolidation is an unsupervised, unprotected Chapter 13 case. They're really not doing anything different for you than the relief you would get in a Chapter 13. But you don't have the court's protection. You don't have the automatic stay in place to stop creditors from suing you if there's a default. You know, and it doesn't help you rebuild your credit. If you file a Chapter 13 instead of doing a debt consolidation, every single month that you stay on plan and make your payments, the trustee is obligated to report that good behavior to the credit reporting agencies. So your credit score, once you file a Chapter 13 and stay on plan, is going up and it's being rehabilitated. Whereas if you do debt consolidation, it can work. Some people do get good results, but most people don't. And most people end up getting lawsuits during the process. I can't tell you how many people I have come to me 2 to 3 years into a debt consolidation and just say, I can't anymore. And you know,
well, the other thing too that I happen to know from my limited experience with it is you end up paying a significant amount of interest because it's all rolled into the loan, right? Or whatever the debt consolidation mechanism is, which you do not pay if you're a Chapter 13, right?
Right. Absolutely. Okay. The interest is stopped as soon as you file. That's a huge and very important difference.
Yes. And just for the people that are listening that don't really understand what is a Chapter 13, generally, and you correct me if I'm wrong, a Chapter 7 is when you meet certain requirements and you can have your debt eliminated.
Correct.
And Chapter 13 is if you fit into this other category, you have to actually make payments towards some portion of the debt or sometimes all of the debt. Is that right?
Exactly right. That's perfect. And the differences can be, what we really look at is you're a good candidate for a Chapter 7 if you have no assets with equity that would be subject to a forced sale to pay creditors, or if you're not earning a high enough wage or income from whatever sources, right? And sometimes there are people who go to a 7 instead of a 13 because they have assets that can be sold to pay creditors, but they don't want to have to go through the burden of the sale process and of doing the payments and everything else. So they'll just go ahead and be in a Chapter 7 to just kind of have the peace of mind to walk away from it. And the trustee deals with the sale, and the trustee deals with the distribution to creditors, and they get their discharge. They don't pay anything else, and they get their fresh start and move on with their life.
So for the people that are thinking, oh my God, I don't want to file bankruptcy, I'm going to lose my house, that's not necessarily the case, is it?
That's only if you do it wrong.
Okay. Because a lot of times people have these misperceptions about what happens in a bankruptcy because maybe they read something online or maybe they had a friend who did it and they just think their bankruptcy is going to go the way their friends did. And, they make assumptions and then they decide, I'm not doing that. That's not for me. But it might not be correct information or it might not apply to them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I want people to understand that if you do have that perception where I'm going to lose my house, I can't file bankruptcy, that might not be the case. So consult with an attorney.
Yeah.
Can you see any circumstance right now where it might be a strategic decision to not file right now?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I have people calling me every day right now who I'm telling them very specifically because of their financial circumstances, the specific structure that they're in, I'm telling them, let's just put you into a sort of holding pattern, a planning stage, right? And we'll just keep in touch for the next few months and see where you are 3 months from now or 6 months from now, depending upon what happens with the quarantine, what kind of relief they may get. Some business owners are feeling like they're underwater, but then, like 2 weeks ago when we talked, they were like just ready to just file and close up. And I said, submit a payroll protection package and see if you can get help from the federal government to keep the business afloat. And then we'll look at the next step if you do get that relief or if you don't. There's just so much that's being tossed at us that we can look at and play it by ear for a while here.
And I don't want people to leave this conversation thinking, well, if this, like if I want to keep my house, then this. I mean, you really do have to consult with someone to find out how it relates to your specific circumstances. But I wanted to address a couple of the things that I know people think about. And one of them obviously is the house. So if there is somebody who maybe they don't have a ton of debt, but they lost their job and they are not making their mortgage payments, I mean, would you be comfortable saying whether that's a bankruptcy situation or not?
So, I would want to have a conversation with that person first to make sure that I really understand their full financial picture. But just on those facts, I would say first, let's try to get them into a mortgage deferral. That's one of the things that the government is offering right now is up to a year really of mortgage forbearance. And the mortgage companies that we've been on the phone with them and on webinars with them regularly, like at least once a week for the past few weeks. And they are all saying, and we're talking about even Wells Fargo, Bank of America, all the usual, suspects. They're consistently saying, their attorneys are telling us that they really don't want a deluge of foreclosures at the end of this, right? So rather than just giving the presumptive forbearance, what they're trying to do is offer people a deferral. And let me explain to you the difference because that's really important, okay? The government has put forth a package that basically automatically grants someone a forbearance. When you have a forbearance, it means that at the end of the forbearance period, the full amount is due. So if I, go on to Wells Fargo's website and I go through their, COVID mortgage forbearance worksheet and I put in my request, I get a 6-month forbearance. At the beginning of month 7, that whole 6 months is due.
So that is the situation now.
And that really doesn't help anybody really.
No.
So what they're doing is, and what I'm doing for clients who have banks that maybe are not automatically offering this or aren't working with them as easily, is we're having them put in the initial request for the forbearance, and then they turn it over to us to negotiate the deferral. And the reason that's important is because in a deferral, what you're doing is you're negotiating the repayment over time. And sometimes it's, over the course of a few years prorated. Sometimes it's just back-ended, adding months onto the end of the mortgage. And sometimes the other option is a balloon payment at the end of the mortgage. All of those work,
Does this affect the person's credit score? Does it look like they didn't pay, or is it pays as agreed on their credit report?
It comes up, it should. I mean,
okay.
That's what they're telling us is it'll come up as paid as agreed right now.
That's always the thing people worry about is my credit, my credit score. And because that's the dialogue a lot in people's heads when they are feeling these financial pressures, and maybe the B word, bankruptcy, might come up. But they will immediately dismiss it because I can't have my credit score affected. It's like everything revolves around the credit score. So I know that it's a huge consideration for a lot of people.
Right. Well, and it's funny you said the B word, and it's that it's that stigma that so many people have about it. And they don't realize that, the government really has put in place structures to encourage people to get a fresh start, to get back on their feet, so that, so that they can be better, more productive tax-paying citizens, right? That's what the government wants us to be. And, I had some clients come in and they're like, they'll whisper to me because if they have to bring their kids or something and the kids are in the waiting room, they'll whisper to me, like, we're not telling the kids we're here for a BK. We're not using that word. Okay.
Burger King.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's really
there is so much stigma associated with that. Maybe we can have a philosophical conversation about that another day.
That would be great.
Well, you know what? I mean, I'm a divorce lawyer. It's the same thing. There's so much stigma associated with divorce, the D word.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think all of it has to do with ego and pride and, not feeling like you have failed in some way, because that's the way people look at divorce, like it's failure. Or if they file a bankruptcy, it's, because they have failed in some way. And, let's face it, that's hard. That's hard to deal with. But I would much prefer to see people get help and some relief if they really need it, because you can move on with life after divorce. You can move on with life after bankruptcy. But I do want to ask you, you refer to yourself as a debt relief attorney. So, there's this saying that, if you go to a surgeon, they're going to tell you need surgery. If you go to a chiropractor, they're going to tell you need an adjustment. So if someone goes to a bankruptcy attorney, are they just going to tell me that I need to file a bankruptcy? It sounds like you do other things.
We do. And it's basically bankruptcy and related consumer relief, so if it's more appropriate, we might do a foreclosure defense, or we might engage in debt settlement negotiations. There's a variety of different tools in the toolbox, right? So we use whichever one is best for that particular client. And I will say, a lot of people are critical of it, but I think one of the best things that came out of the 2005 revisions to the bankruptcy code was that bankruptcy lawyers now are required to give a set of disclosures to every potential client. And those disclosures have to explain, per statute, right? They have to explain to the potential client what costs are associated with bankruptcy, what other options are possibly available besides bankruptcy. So, I have always made it a practice to explain all the options, and now I kind of save time because I give those disclosures, and I've learned to tell people, look, read these carefully. Let me know if you have any questions. And then I'll tell them, X is my specific recommendation, and these are the reasons I'm making this recommendation. But if you see anything here that says, raises a question in your mind, why are you not recommending this? We didn't cover something. I really encourage people to come back with those questions, because I want to make sure that they understand what I'm recommending, why I'm recommending it, because I don't want anyone to ever look back and say, I really feel like I got pushed into filing a bankruptcy and that wasn't what I was really comfortable doing. I want all my clients to say, I know why I did it. I felt it was the right thing for me. And, and I really felt like I got the best relief that was available to me under my circumstances.
Yeah. So basically there could be an alternative to surgery.
Yes. Yes.
Now, for the people that have already had a bankruptcy proceeding and are in a Chapter 13, is there any relief for people that might be having some difficulty making the Chapter 13 payments? Like, what if you lose your job?
Okay, so there's a couple of things for that. Number one is that our Chapter 13 trustees have made a commitment to not moving for dismissals as quickly as they normally do. They have asked us, the attorneys, to keep in touch with them, to advise them if there is, especially a COVID-related hardship, because they're trying to work with people and give them time. If you are in a Chapter 13 case and you already have a confirmed plan, so you're at the stage in your case where you're already just making your plan payments, and you suffer a hardship right now, there's actually an additional provision in the CARES Act, which is the, I forget the whole thing, but it's like the Coronavirus Relief, blah, blah, blah Act. And there's a provision in there that allows Chapter 13 plans to be extended up to 7 years.
Oof.
So, yeah.
Sounds like eternity.
It does. But you know what? If you're in a space where you're like, I don't have income for this 6 months, and I'm just like getting my stimulus check and paying my rent and have a forbearance on my, or have a forbearance on my mortgage or whatever, that can be a huge, very meaningful relief, right? Instead of derailing your process, you can just submit a modified plan with a certification that sets forth the hardships. And of course, they require documentation to prove the hardship, but then you can say, my client, is out of work for the foreseeable future. So we're going to put their plan payments down to just like $50 a month until they turn around. And we're going to extend the life of the plan by 6 months to give them more time to turn this around, or, by a year, or, up to 7 years total.
Yes. And I know I'm going off the questions that I told you I was going to ask, but can some people who are Chapter 13, could they potentially convert to a Chapter 7 if they lost their job and, if they're out of work for an extended period of time?
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. And that is something available, always. Now, and COVID does not change that. So if you're in a situation where you were in a Chapter 13 solely because of income, right? And you don't have equity in a house or something like that at risk, which then flipping your case to a 7 would not make sense because you lose your house, right? So we'd rather extend the life of your 13 and give you time for your income to get back on track. Yeah. But if you're in a 7 just because of income, you can, if your income is reduced for 6 months, and we can show that hardship is going to make it so that you really can't stay feasibly in a 13, we can just convert it to a 7, and then all of that debt that you would have been paying the 13 will get completely wiped out and forgiven.
Okay, so sometimes lemonade, right?
Yes.
Okay, so just to wrap things up, you are certainly more knowledgeable about CARES as it relates to bankruptcy than I am. Is there anything else that you would want our viewers to know, relief that's being provided by the CARES Act?
So let's see, anything else? There is going to be a second wave of the payroll protection program. So if people have a small business or a sole proprietorship and they did not get in on that in the first wave, they should call their banker or their accountant and try to get a packet together, because that can be extremely, meaningful relief. Let's see, as far as collections actions and things of that nature, people should know that the state of New Jersey has put a moratorium on entering orders of that nature. So, there's no sheriff sales, and there's shouldn't be any new collections actions orders entered right now. If they get notices about things like that right now, they should not get really worried. I mean, it's a great time to reach out to us for planning purposes, but nothing's going to happen while the CARES Act is putting this sort of blanket protections over everything. And if they have other, more specific questions about what relief is there, some people are saying they didn't get their stimulus checks yet, or there was trouble with their stimulus checks. There's so much. It's really an incredibly comprehensive piece of legislation for how quickly it was put together. Call us, and if we don't know the answer, we can try to direct you to somebody who's better equipped to answer it, or we can find out the answer. We can work together on it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And so what I really want to get out to our viewers is that if you are having these financial difficulties, if the B word has come up, or if it's something you are strenuously object to, there could be other alternatives in terms of debt relief. So please don't suffer. Please reach out and ask for help, and reach out to Karina. She will tell you honestly if you are a candidate for bankruptcy, how that may benefit you, or if there are other alternatives short of bankruptcy that could help you and provide some relief. So Karina, how can we reach out to you?
So one thing is we're going to post this on our Facebook page, and you can message us and just start a conversation. If you're not comfortable getting on the phone or doing a video chat and you're just not at that level yet, you can just start a little Facebook Messenger dialogue. You can go to our website. We have lots and lots of blogs with lots more information, and something might apply specifically to you. You can call us. Our website is www.karinalucidlaw.com. Our phone number and all contact is there. But, call us. We are manning the phones, even though most of us are working from home. Luckily, we have all the remote access. So go to the website, email us, call us, whatever. We're working. We're
awesome. And I'll put a link to your website in the comments.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for this information, and would love to have you back on again sometime.
Thanks, Christina. I'd love to do it again. And the opportunity to do a little philosophical one would be super fun.
Yeah, I don't know if it'll be as interesting to everyone, but I'm game.
All right, good.
Thank you so much. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. You too. Take care.